So, new podcast in the description. Gave an Eastern Conference preview for every team. Not really like a standings prediction, but just talking on just things I like and don't like with each team. Spoke on HBO's new thriller, Sharp Objects, Episode 1. Then talked about a whole lot of Game of Thrones, final thoughts on that show, after Season 7 at least. Now we're going to talk about Clint Capela, who is currently in a contract negotiation with the Houston Rockets. Capela would like an annual salary of about $25 million. The Houston Rockets would like to pay him 5 years, $85, which would equal out to about $17 million a season. And the thing is, there's many different angles to go at here. I can understand why Capela wants to get paid what he wants, because when you look at the market, if you look at where Capela ranks among NBA centers, to me, he's in the Steven Adams, Andre Drummond, DeAndre Jordan, Marc Gasol tier of centers, and all of those guys are making somewhere between $20 to $25 million a year. So in that sense, I think it's fair for him to expect that kind of money. However, the market for centers has changed because a lot of those contracts were signed when there was the big cap spike and everybody had cap space, and we saw some ridiculous contracts with Mozgov and Biyombo. Was Biyombo that year? I believe it was, to the Magic. Tristan Thompson's making about 16, 17. I know his deal wasn't signed then, but he's in that ballpark. There was Enes Kanter, who's also making $17 million a season right now. And it's this weird thing where Houston, I think they're making the right play by not wanting to give Capela all that money, because you could argue that the money that inferior centers have gotten is now what Capela is actually worth, because cap space is not as prevalent as it once was, right? And speaking on Enes Kanter real quick, I know his was a restricted free agency thing with the Blazers. I know he also wasn't signed that offseason as Mozgov, but it's a similar thing, I think, nonetheless. But getting back to Capela, you could make the argument that you can't blame Capela for NBA GMs making really stupid decisions, right? You could argue that Capela, all he needs to say is, yeah, well, this is the going rate for good starting centers. I'm a good starting center who's getting better every season, by the way, so I deserve to get paid as much as Steven Adams does. I can understand why he has a case there, but then once again, market has changed, all that stuff. From Houston's perspective, if they were going to give Capela about $17 million over 5 years, then that would place Capela kind of in the second tier, or maybe even third tier, technically, of NBA centers, even though we all know that he's actually one of the better ones. Because, his ability to switch on defense, his rolling to the rim, his catching alley-oops, his offensive rebounds. I think the fact that Capela is getting better every season. I mean, his rookie year, he shot 17% from the free throw line. And then this previous season, he shot nearly 60%. I think he was around mid-50s, which is still not good, but it's a drastic improvement. And maybe there's a chance that he could actually approach 70% one season. Who knows? I think his stamina is improving as his minutes per game have gotten better every year. And he's just a perfect fit for Houston, so they do need the guy. But another thing for the Rockets, and why they may be a little hesitant towards the $25 million a year, is if they give him that money, then they're pretty much guaranteed to be in the luxury tax for 2 years, because they still have Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon's contracts. And then you add up Harden's deal, which is going to be making a jump after the 2019 season, on top of the deal Chris Paul just signed. Then you add the $25 million of Clint Capela, and that's a pretty damn expensive team. And you would have to deal with that for 2 seasons. And then after that, Ryan Anderson's money comes off the books, and it's just a whole weird thing. I think if I was Houston, even if I wouldn't love it, I would still give him... Well, I would try my damnedest to not have to go all the way up to $25 million annually, but I would see how close I could get, because your window is right now. Chris Paul's 33 years old. Who knows how much time he really has left, and you already committed all that money to him. And I feel like if you let Clint Capela walk, then it wouldn't be a total waste because you'd still be really good and you'd sell out the arena and stuff with Harden and Paul. But your chances at a title are pretty much gone at that point because they need Clint Capela in order to beat the Warriors. So if you let him walk, then, you might still end up being like the third or maybe still even second best team in the West. Maybe. I mean, Capela makes a pretty big impact there. But, your real chances aren't there. So I would still do it, and I would eat the luxury tax for a couple years. And then after Anderson's money's up, and I would like to re-sign Gordon, but who knows if I really can do that. I don't know. But it's definitely a push and pull from Houston and Capela here. This could be one of those cases where it's the NBA and it's either you overpay for a guy or you don't get to keep him. But the interesting thing here is, of course, Capela is a restricted free agent, and could this end up with just a qualifying offer going to Capela? He plays out this season, then we see what happens as he's an unrestricted free agent. That's a possibility. The problem there is that could create a rift in the team because Capela could feel offended that Houston never gave him a real offer. And then, maybe that makes him play 3% less hard this season. It might not, because Capela may be he may play with the most energy in the entire NBA, to be honest, but he is still a human, and that's going to be in the back of his head, and then that could make him, go into the open market with perhaps more of a jaded opinion of the Houston Rockets. Now, it could end up being totally fine, and they could just re-sign him, and no harm, no foul, but there's a possibility that it wouldn't go as well, right? We're seeing right now with Marcus Smart and his restricted free agency situation where he's pretty upset at the Celtics for not giving him an ample enough offer. So, yeah, a lot of different avenues with this Capela-Houston thing. And again, I do think the root of this is, like, in a vacuum, yeah, he deserves to make as much money as the top centers in the NBA, outside of, like, the elite of the elite. Also, the fact that DeMarcus Cousins is on $5 million is really funny. But of course, the market has changed and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if there's a clear-cut thing that's going to happen here. I could see a qualifying offer. I could see them meeting in the middle at like $21 million a year, which is effectively not that much of a difference, but I don't know. And actually, if I can go back to Capela's potential a little bit, because I think that is something that you could be paying for as well if you're Houston. I know you got Chris Paul, and you're trying to win right now, but Capela's 23, okay? And James Harden is still going to have himself a few years after Chris Paul is either gone or towards the tail end of his contract. So you could be banking on when CP3 is gone as well, so you can still be pretty respectable and potentially still like an elite team, depending on if they happen to like find a diamond in the rough over the next couple of seasons or whatever. I mean, you never know with these things, right? But if we look at Capela's potential, I do think there's a chance he could end up being in like the Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid level of defender, because he's 23 right now. And with how good he is right now at switching, you combine that with maybe getting a little stronger, getting smarter on defense, improving his ability to just stay on the floor for longer stretches. I think it's a possibility, given how good he is right now defensively, that he could get to that level. And yeah, that's definitely the kind of guy who you'd be comfortable giving the $25 million a year to. So it's all interesting stuff. Now, of course, there's a chance he doesn't get to that point because all those guys were elite defensively by, like, I don't know, Gobert's second season, Davis's, like, third or something, Embiid's first. Dude walked in as a defensive juggernaut. Yeah, there's many different things here. I think Houston should keep the guy because I don't see a better option out there, but yeah. We'll see what happens. Anyway, once again, new pod. East preview, Sharp Objects on HBO, Game of Thrones, I'm done.